After 20 years of building together through dust, deadlines, and damn good ideas, Pace and Adam invite you to join them for honest conversations about the home building world. Welcome to Build Connected, where experience meets insight, powered by Diamond Home Restoration.
We are back at another episode of Build Connected, everybody. And I want to say that we have a special guest today, and it's Pace, who is back from vacation. It's a new, refreshed Pace. He's smiling. He's happy. I don't know how long it's going to last, but it's back to reality now, buddy. Back to the real world. Back to the grind. Back to work.
I like this. You know, that vacation, it's too much. I can't handle that. I need to be back at work. This is where I belong. I am very happy.
But you know what? My turn is coming. I go away next week.
Yeah.
That's right.
You've earned it. You had a busy 2+ weeks. So great job holding down the fort. Thank you. Until next time.
Thank you. Okay.
All right.
Well, let's kick things off here. Let's get into a product that we use, that we like. Maybe it's something that you listeners out there would be interested in. It's a small little upgrade for perhaps something on your own house. We use a lot of Simpson connectors. If you're not familiar with Simpson, Simpson is a company that makes structural connectors, and we use them every day in our line of work. Everything from joist hangers to post bases to you name it. There's numerous catalogs for all of their different kinds of products. Hold downs, shear wall stuff. I can go on and on. Some of these are never seen. They're hidden inside the walls. You never get to see them. But man, they are meaningful to all that we do in our construction. So if you have some stuff outside of your house, and by stuff, I mean if you have structural connectors that you can see, that are visual, maybe they're a little ugly. Maybe they're silver in color. Maybe they're painted over the same color as your house. Maybe you don't care at all about what I'm saying, but if you do, and if you have some of these connectors that look a little weathered and tired, you can upgrade to Simpson's architectural line of connectors. That's right, architectural line. They call them an architectural line because they are painted black. They come already pre-finished with this nice black color, and they're nice to look at. You get kind of that modern look with a little bit of ruggedness, perhaps, you know. Anyway, we're using them on a project right now, which is why I'm talking about it, because it's something that's happening at the moment. So maybe if you feel like an update, a small one, buy some of these architectural black connectors, and you can spruce things up a little bit, bring a little character to some of those posts and beams. And maybe you have some posts and beams that are lacking positive connections and could use them. This is a good place to use those.
Yeah,
that's it.
You know, I think I'm going to flash a couple photos. If you're watching on YouTube, which you should be doing, you know, because there's lots of hijinks you pick up on when you're watching. You'll see some photos of what Adam's talking about. A couple of places we use these all the time when we're outside, like in a pergola area, some sort of outdoor deck environment where we've got post to beam connections. This is where you'll see them most. Last couple of projects we've been on, we've done new entryways. So we've had like covered entryways with sort of I'm going to use the word timber frame here, underside of the roof. And, you know, that's a great candidate for the Simpson architectural line. But you're right. Just like you said, they do the job of the positive structural connection, but they look really nice with that black finish.
And you don't have to be too handy to put these in. You can you can purchase their pre-made black structural screws that go into these beautiful little black washers that they have. And if you can use a drill or an impact driver, you can do it yourself. Spruce things up. Anyway.
Yeah, you know, some of the stuff is just surface mounted connections. Other stuff like a post hanger, say, We don't want you disassembling your house if you're not qualified.
Leave that to the professionals.
Yeah, that's Adam. Leave that to Adam. That's right.
Well, Pace, kick us off here. What do you got?
Well, today I'm going to wade back into this world of regulation. I talked about it some weeks back, and I'm going to talk about just a California piece of it. After my vacation in Maine, a couple of things happened. First of all, thank you to all my friends and family, a lot of friends that I haven't talked to in way too long who have been watching and listening to the podcast. It felt really good. So thank you for that. But it led to some conversations about multiple things. Price is always a good conversation. When you're talking to somebody from Maine versus somebody who works in California, like the differences in cost are staggering, really. And that applies to the labor front. It applies to the cost of design to get a set of drawings to build from. And that's its own talk altogether. But the other thing that I found myself talking about with a number of people was regulation. In particular, the thing I want to talk about today is two things in California that aren't an issue yet in the rest of the world, and that's Title 24 and the Green Building Code. These are two programs that California started some years back that require outside consultants to come in and do an added section to our building plans. So an architect doesn't generate, like, say, our Title 24. They sub that out to an outside organization that runs a whole bunch of design calculations on your home. It's a problem. I am 100% behind the intent of this program, but the need for every single project to be a one-off, meaning hiring consultants to do performance calculations on every single house, is a problem. It's a problem because it adds considerable time and money to every single job. It leads to delays as well. And I think that the heart of the program, this increase in prescriptive measures for your house. Let me just simplify or pick on a couple of items: insulation and windows. I have no problem with increasing the insulation you need in any given wall cavity or underneath your roof. I have no problem saying that your windows need to be further insulated or have a better solar heat gain number. Those are all great things, but make it prescriptive. Make it just so that everybody has to do it all the time, and save on that added layer in the design and in the plans and permitting. Yeah, I think that's my thought. Adam, what comes to mind when I say something like that?
Yeah, the prescriptive approach, it makes a lot of sense for what we do. We tend as builders to, I'm talking about Pace and I, we tend to do things above code, but enabling all builders to stick to a prescriptive measure of building still maintains good quality building. And why don't we take a minute and define these two methods of building, okay? We've got our prescriptive method and our performance-based method. So I'm going to read this. Prescriptive building follows specific rules, codes, and standard methods. It tells you exactly how to do something. For example, 2x6 stud walls spaced every 16 inches. Then we have a performance-based building, which focuses on outcomes rather than methods. It defines the desired result, for example, structural strength, energy efficiency, and fire resistance, and allows the builder, engineer, or architect to decide how to achieve that goal, often using calculations, testing, or simulations. Prescriptive is simpler to follow, but less flexible, and performance-based is more complex to justify, but allows for innovation and cost-effective alternatives. There you have
That's
it.
right. So like I fully support both of these, right? I think you should always have the option to go the performative route. What's happened in California is every project that we do becomes performative, right? Because every job that we do, we need to provide calcs for Title 24. And it's just that. It's more complicated. That equates to more time and more money. There needs to be, and like I've said, I don't mind if there's an increase in what the prescriptive requirements are. Um, that needs to be an option for building in California, period.
Well, let's talk about these calculations that take place, right? Like, let's say you have a big cereal bowl and we're going to fill it full of these calculations. So we're solving for window calculations, such as U factor and solar heat gain. We're solving for your heat pump, furnace. They're all put together to figure out your total efficiency of the house instead of going about a more prescriptive measure like we've been talking about.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I think there's a place for both of them. But for a state to require all projects, and I'm talking about, like large remodels that we're talking about, new homes, all of them to become performative since they require Title 24. That's where the problem lies, right there.
So maybe just talk real quick about a project we're on right now, Pace, where we are doing a remodel. The CalGreen and Title 24 stuff was all done in order to obtain our permit. As we began construction, we did notice there was a small bit of writing that discussed their heating system as being updated. However, it was already updated before we started the build. But keep in mind, when I say there was a little blurb about this, I'm not kidding. It was little, so little, it's hard to read these words. I'm talking about all these tiny, tiny little sentences piled together on sheets of paper that are, A, hard to read unless you got a 3X glasses on. And there's so much of it that even the inspectors have trouble deciphering some of the things that are in there.
Yeah,
So,
the tables are horrible. They are designed by certainly an engineer. They're difficult for us to read because they're not user friendly, and stuff gets buried in just cells. Right? Imagine a giant table, and like really important information can be buried in a small cell like that. It's just very difficult to follow. And like you said, we go through this on every single job with inspectors. Like the difficulty in pulling out useful information, it's just poorly designed. But there's a different way to go about it that just removes layers of process. And that's where the solution, if we want to build more, if we want to build affordable housing, if we want to be able to keep costs down, this layer of regulation needs to go away.
yeah, and I think we're not saying when you say build more, we want to build high quality more, right?
We want to build better, right? But
Better.
this layer is hurting the process. So yeah, I'm all for higher efficiency. Like I want our houses to live long, long after we're gone, right? That's what we're aiming for. Low maintenance, high performance. But we're not looking for just added layers of process on paper they're not actually a house. Like everybody needs to wake up and realize that our sets of plans are not the house. They are a language that communicate what we're trying to build, what people want to live in. It's a language. It's not the actual house.
Well said, Pace.
I just threw a wink at you there. That was nice.
I saw the wink, and it was cool.
Yeah.
If you're listening and not watching, you missed how cool that wink was.
That was like Magnum PI cool. All right, moving on.
All right, moving on. Yeah, let's. I want to talk about something that kind of covers a bunch of different areas. And Pace, I'm going to have you kind of jump in And cut me off if I'm going down too much of a rabbit hole here, because maybe this can be spread over a couple different episodes. But there's a couple people we really like following on Instagram, and we gain some knowledge from, as I think people do from us. But Zach Detmore, who's a builder, I think he's a Philly boy like myself. I always enjoy watching his little tidbits. But he did a little rant about decision making from a contractor point of view. All the decisions that come with being a contractor when pricing out a set of plans or a new project. And this kind of relates a little bit to the pre-construction process that we discussed, right? If you get on board early with a contractor and you start those pricing strategies immediately, maybe some of this is kind of avoidable. But if you're back in that kind of old school thought process of, let me get my plans, let me go get 3 estimates, you have a job ahead of you, which is to try and compare and contrast these different estimates. Are these apples to apples? How do you do that? It's difficult. And here's an example of why and how it relates to contractors having to make lots of decisions. So my first example is when we do an estimate, we have a line item that might be an allowance. And a good example would be tile. Let's say the tile hasn't been selected by the architect or designer, and it's our job as a contractor to put a number to that. So we have to think about, there's lots of choices to think about. Is it going to be tile? Is it going to be stone? I can go on and on. But when we make an allowance decision in our estimate, Pace and I do our best to understand what the homeowner wants, what the look is they're going for. But the point is if you're trying to compare one estimate to another, one contractor might have a tile allowance that's based off of, $1 per square foot tile from Home Depot, which is actually, there's some decent subway tile that you can get for that. While another contractor might be pricing a tile that's $35 a square foot. And this is just one line item that contractors have to make decisions on. This just can compound on itself. So although I'm just describing one line item, there might be 15 line items that are allowances that you as a homeowner have to decipher when trying to compare these different estimates. But as a contractor, there's so much to think about. Zach Detmore talks about flooring, right? I mean, all the decisions as a builder that you have to think of when just putting a price to flooring. Am I going to use just a simple stain? Am I going to do what's called like water popping it, and then I'm going to do a stain? Am I going to do a finish coat that's higher quality than another? Anyway, my point is there's lots of decisions to be made. If you can get into this pre-construction process and talk these things through from the beginning, you can really nail down some of this stuff before it gets out of hand, and you don't find yourself stuck in that position of trying to compare different estimates that are showing different things.
Yeah, like you said, there are countless examples of this. One that I find came up a lot in our past was sheetrock, right? You could be having a conversation with a person, before we put our estimate together, and they'd say something like, "Yeah, of course we're going to hang sheetrock in the new areas, but in the rest of the house, we've got a texture on the walls. We'd really like to have a smooth coat. Could you put a number in there to go ahead and do a smooth coat on the entire house?" It's a 1-minute conversation that might happen with one contractor or two, but maybe not the others. And so all of a sudden, our sheetrock number is like 3 times the other guys because it's such a labor-intensive process. And it's a throwaway line for a homeowner, that, again, they're not experienced enough to know how to compare that apples to apples that you're looking for. But really, any line in an estimate, you could have that variation, and it just makes it really difficult to compare.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the moral of the story is kind of understand, have conversations with your builder about what's in some of these line items. understand that a contractor does have to make a lot of assumptions through many of these things. And it's good to talk these things through early.
Yeah, you mentioned Zach. We obviously listen to the Build Show with Matt Reisinger a lot too. So I think it's fair to throw out his name because he's got so many contributors. It's just a great source of information for both builders and homeowners as well. All right. Well, looping back, like I said, some great conversations over vacation. And it just reminded me of why you and I, wanted to do this. It's all about building better. I mean, it's about providing a better way for our clients and making the process just more transparent, more efficient, less scary, less full of pitfalls. That's why we're here. So when I say, when I talk about things like cutting regulation, it's because it's a roadblock right now in California. So again, we're just trying to do things better.
Nice, Pace. Well, thanks everybody for listening today. Hope you enjoyed our podcast, and we have many more to come. So until next time, I'm Adam.
And I'm Pace.
Thank you.
See ya.
Thanks for joining us on Build Connected. For more stories, insights, and ideas, visit diamondhomerestoration.com or find us on Instagram and LinkedIn. We'll be back next week. We hope you will too.